So the stock market, the NASDAQ, is down approximately 20% since its all-time highs. China's shutting down again with COVID restrictions. The war on Ukraine with Russia is not easing up. They're clearly having more tensions arising. The Fed is increasing interest rates. And the one thing that we did see just Monday is bond yields actually dropping a little bit. So what's going on, team? My name is Xander with Facer Trading Academy. Welcome back to another week. We do these videos every single Monday night, and we basically break down what's going on in the market from a technical standpoint. Obviously, we consider the fundamentals, and then we try to analyze as to where we believe, the next week is going to be headed. So this week and last week and the week before, actually, what we've been focusing on is inverse ETFs, the underlying inverse ETFs for the NASDAQ, right? So we've been trading SQQQ and TQQQ while watching the NASDAQ market and how it behaves. So let's go ahead and jump into the 4-hour chart here on the NASDAQ, which is /NQ. And today, what we actually saw is after about 2 weeks, for the first time, we actually saw a pretty strong reversal off of a very strong support level. So let's go back to zoom out a little bit. As you can see down here at 13,343, between 13,343 and about 12,987, 1,300 basically, we saw a fairly strong support level here where we consistently keep seeing bounces. We saw a bounce here in March 14th. We saw a bounce here end of February, beginning of March, and then mid-March, basically in the same area. So now we're basically down to this exact same support level, and we just happen to have a strong bounce that happened today on Monday morning. So with the team, if you guys are on the team, you guys know that we talked about a position in TQQQ over the weekend, just because after seeing so much selling, eventually that gets exhausted, and we need to see, at least just like we see a correction when the stocks are going up, we need to see correction when the stock is going down, or when the market's going down, right? We can't just keep dropping unless something very, very substantial happens, right? And even though we have, lockdowns in China having an impact, most investors are kind of shrugging that off. And what I do want to talk about today is the fact that throughout this sell-off that we saw, we actually did incorporate, or we did account for, the interest rate hikes, not only for this upcoming one that's most likely going to be about 50 basis points. There is talks about 75 basis points, but that might be more so for June. But I believe that we're probably going to see about a 50% or a 50 basis point hike here in May. And then afterwards, we can really consider what the Fed might do here in June. But even that, we to a degree have priced in even the rate hike that we might see, or that we will probably see in June, and in this pullback that we saw. So over the weekend, we anticipated that eventually, we're going to see this correction back up to the upside, which is exactly what we saw on Monday, which is today. So while we did see a strong push to the upside, one thing that I do want to talk about is the fact that if we're looking at the 4-hour chart, let's go ahead and zoom in a tad bit. That way you guys can see it a little bit more clear. After this pullback, the one thing I do want you guys to know is the fact that although we did break above this EMA right here, this blue line, one thing you guys need to consider is this isn't anything new, right? We have seen these breakouts, and they're kind of more so like fake outs than breakouts. And it breaks up a little bit over the EMA, and then it ends up pulling right back down. It breaks up. This one was a little bit more of a stronger break. We actually saw a nice push to the upside where, we had a couple of days to actually capitalize on this reversal. Today, what I did was I actually locked in my profits here on TQQQ. The reason being is because we are right at this EMA line, basically. Although we pushed a little bit over, tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised to see a pullback back down to the support level that we just bounced off of, to either retest it and then break back out, or to actually start pulling back even further after people kind of have an idea of, okay, they've considered all the factors and this is what they want to do. So beginning of the week, it's oftentimes it's very, very volatile. And so, I just wasn't personally comfortable with holding overnight just because I'm not sure what to expect tomorrow, right? We also have a very, very big earnings week this week in the markets. Let me go ahead and pull up the earnings chart or the earnings calendar. I believe we have Microsoft reporting, we have Meta, which is Facebook reporting, we have Google reporting. We have a lot of big name companies reporting this week. And so depending on how those earnings go, that's really also going to have an impact on the market. So just be aware that that's happening this week as well. On top of everything else that's going on top of the interest rate hikes, on top of the China lockdown, China, the lockdowns in China over COVID. Let me go ahead and pull this up real quick. On top of that, obviously the tensions between Russia and Ukraine. So on top of that, we also have earnings coming this week for a lot of big name companies. And even if we are seeing a reversal, personally, the way I approach this is I want to actually see a confirmed breakout, right? I want to see it break out above this EMA, bounce on the EMA, and then continue higher, rather than try to predict where it's going to go, and then at the end it doesn't really go that way, right? And ends up faking out and then pulling right back down. So I'd rather see jump in tomorrow again. Today we played a nice obviously play here on TQQQ. And then tomorrow, what we're going to do is we're going to see how the market opens. There's obviously pre-market earning reports, and then obviously post-market. So we're going to kind of have a better idea as to where things are headed once we see tomorrow's open. And that's kind of what we're going to be basing our decisions on. So let's see, what else do we have reporting this week? Coca-Cola reported today. What else do we have? We have Apple reporting, Amazon reporting, Chevron, Exxon Mobil reporting, Waste Management, JetBlue, Visa, Google, I believe I already mentioned. Today, what else did we have? We had Philips report. That one's not too big. Whirlpool. UPS is reporting tomorrow. 3M is reporting tomorrow. Microsoft Alphabet, which is Google. Chipotle, and not too big of a company to worry about. But yeah, those are probably the 3 or 4 big ones that I'd be watching. Would be Microsoft, Google, which is Alphabet, Visa, 3M, and UPS. Those would be the ones I'd be watching. JetBlue might be interesting to see, just to see how it kind of goes with airlines, how that has an impact on airlines. So that's kind of the move for tomorrow, is to watch where things start heading into Tuesday. Monday's always kind of iffy because, it's after the weekend. So it depends on how people kind of, emotionally reacted to everything that happened last week, is how they react on Monday when the markets finally open after the weekend. So Tuesday is really going to be a better indication of where we're headed for the rest of the week. In my opinion, from what I've been seeing in the charts, that's just more from a fundamental standpoint from the charts. Like I said, I've mentioned this before, we came down to the support. We're seeing a potential break to the upside. Obviously, we became super oversold. And that's why we ended up seeing this bounce here. Every time we see this oversold indicator, we see a bounce. We saw this oversold indicator, wasn't as oversold, but we saw a nice rip to the upside. We're oversold here on the RSI, ended up ripping back up to the upside. And once again, we're oversold right here again, and we're starting to break out. We broke out today. We pushed higher today, and we're starting to break above this EMA line here. And so from a technical standpoint, what I can kind of say is, what I'd be anticipating is obviously more bullish sentiment going into Tuesday, potentially the rest of the week. After seeing the market selling off for 2 weeks, I think we found a fairly decent support. Obviously, that's just an opinion, but from the technicals that we're seeing here, MACD is starting to shift to the upside. We're starting to get an indication of bullish momentum here to the upside. The EMA is starting to break. The RSI is looking good. Obviously, we're not seeing too much worry about, the lockdowns going on in China. So that's not really having an impact. Like I said, the biggest things that I would be worried about right now is earnings, just because interest rates, those have already been priced in. And a lot of times people worry too much about the fact that, they're worried about, oh, they're going to be raising interest rates. Well, that's already been priced in. That's what people don't really consider, is the fact that those interest rates are priced in before those rate hikes happen, right? After those rate hikes happen, the market tends to react a little bit differently than what it was reacting, right? So if it was selling off because people were worried, it's actually going to start, taking off. I wouldn't say blowing up, but it's going to be taking off, right? It's going to be heading to the upside. And that's exactly what we're starting to see. So that's kind of what my thoughts are on the current situation of the market and where we should be headed in the next few days, potentially the rest of the week. The levels I'd be watching out for is going to be this level right here between 13,793 and 13,918. And after that, if we do see a break above that, that's actually going to be the 50-day simple moving average. And if we break above the 50-day simple moving average, where, as you guys can see, every time we start approaching it, we get rejected. Start approaching it, get rejected. Start approaching it, got rejected. So that would be the first level. That would be the first critical level I'd be watching here is 13,876. So even tomorrow, if we do see a push to the upside continued, obviously I'll be looking to play TQQQ if we continue to push up. But that's the level I'd be watching for potential resistance, right? In the short term, right? And if we do break above that, the next level would be that 180-day simple moving average, which is 14,305. And then if we break above that, then obviously the sentiment, we can say, more confidently that the sentiment has changed. Until then, we can't really say that. So we kind of have to be paying attention to these levels. So that's going to be the first level that we're going to be paying attention to. That's going to be the second level that we're going to be paying attention to. And on the downside, the level, if we do end up reversing, the downside level was obviously going to be this level where we found support previously, which isn't even that much lower, right? So that's kind of why I'm more so on the bullish side of this right now, is because we are pretty much at the bottom at previous supports, right? And so that's going to be 12,966. That's the levels that we're going to be watching. The SPY is pretty much reacting the same exact way. We can pull up that chart. That way you guys can see. It's obviously reacting in a very similar fashion. Ended up selling off here. Let's go ahead and zoom in to where we were talking about. Ended up selling off for the last 2 days, and then we had a strong push to the upside here. We're breaking out above the EMA once again on this. Chart's looking basically the same way, right? RSI is looking good, MACD is looking good. So that's kind of the play that we're going to be paying attention to. And that's what we've been focused on for the most part, is these inverse ETFs, right? And the reason being for that is because, when the market's really volatile, it's a little harder to, I don't want to say predict, because that's not what we like to do, but it's harder to be more confident in the decision that you're making investing in stocks individually, right? So especially with like something like Facebook or Visa or Google right now, because depending on how earnings go, that's the direction that's going to start heading, right? And so it's kind of hard to predict, versus if you're trading inverse ETFs, you're really just paying attention to where the market's going and you're playing that ETF, right? So like I said, if we do see a continuation here on the NASDAQ to the upside breaking out, obviously we're going to be playing TQQQ, and we want to see a break above this EMA level right here, $43.43, right? That's what we want to see a break above. And that's going to start indicating to us that we're starting to reverse. Just like we saw right here, we broke out, we reversed for 2-3 days, and then we ended up breaking below the EMA again, started selling off. So when we're breaking above, we're trading TQQQ, we're potentially breaking above. So we're going to be focusing on TQQQ potentially tomorrow on Tuesday. However, when we start breaking below the EMA, and we break below the EMA here on the NASDAQ, then we want to trade the SQQQ, because when the NASDAQ's going up, TQQQ is going up. When the NASDAQ is going down, SQQQ is actually going up. So hopefully that helps you guys out for the week that's coming up. That's what we're going to be focused on. If you guys are in the team, you guys got a watch list last night with actual stocks that we're paying attention to, either to the long side or to the short side. Twitter was one of them that we actually talked about yesterday in the stock talk yesterday in the watch list that I mentioned to you guys, and we actually saw a nice push up to the upside on Twitter. So if you guys do appreciate this kind of content, and you guys do potentially want to be a part of the team, make sure to message me below or comment below, smash the like button, show your support. That really helps the channel push this out to more people. That way people actually try to understand a little more as to what they're doing versus just kind of gambling in the market. So hopefully you guys found value. If you did, smash that like button. If you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe. We do this every single Sunday, or every single Monday night, every Sunday night. We do a watch list for the team. And that's going to be it for today, guys. Hopefully you guys, take this in and take this to your advantage and be able to capitalize on this information in this upcoming week. And I'll see you guys on next week's Stock Talk video.